Where's a hair tie? Ah, shit. I need to grab my phone. Dang it. Alright. Got a hair tie. Well. Ah, shit. Just cleaned the entire RV out. Well, right on. Good shit there. You can use an RV as storage. Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to. I mean, because it has an ability to store things. Yes. Coffee. Let's charge these up too. Yeah, more stuff than I thought it would. Well, because I'm guessing it got broken down and eventually was just used as a storage unit instead. And I'm tired as fuck because, well, I woke up like a couple hours ago. Got up, took my pup for a walk, grabbed some coffee, and now I'm here. So, have enough old biker jackets? No shit. There's a bunch of old biker jackets in there, huh? Dude, what size are they? Dude, give me... Dude, send me some. Just send me some of those jackets. I'm not even kidding, dude. I'm kind of a sticker for old like old biker jackets. I like them. I like old ass biker jackets. Because if you think about it, it's meant to kind of like be armor in a way. Because like if you crash on the road, like that thick ass leather jacket is supposed to kind of help stop like, you know, road rash and like, you know, you're like getting ripped apart and shredded like a cheese grater. See what I can do. I mean, I'm not being super serious, but if there's just a happenstance, it's like, yeah, we can get rid of a few of them, then you know what? Fuck it. It's, you know, might as well let them be put to use still instead of stored up in some fucking RV in Alabama somewhere, where they might just get sold to a Goodwill or something and eventually just like stay there forever. So, at least it'll definitely get some use. And plus, actually, it's a cold environment out here sometimes, you know, during the winters at least, and when you're up in the mountains. So a jacket like that actually is really, it's really useful. Another Republican called horny posting on Twinks. I know. Yeah, we saw that last night. And actually, I kind of wanted to look more into it because it's hilarious. So I'm assuming that's the Mike Figueredo video. I haven't seen it yet. I'm assuming that's it, isn't it? Because, my god, it's just great. They love to be fucking like, alright, we need to make sure that we protect children and ban these drag shows. And then, like, later that night, they're just like, alright, ladies, let's get the party started. Make sure that you got the most fabulous shit on tonight, girls. Like, I mean, they go full drag and fucking femme gay as fuck. Like, you know, once, like, they're, you know, in their clubs. It's just like, you hypocritical fucking shits. If, I was watching a Hassan, like, React clip channel of it, and Hassan actually had an interesting point. He's like, do you think that these Republicans, you know, are just doing this because of children? Nah, it's because they're jealous. They're jealous that they're not the most sexiest, beautiful drag queen out there, and they want to limit the market so they're the most beautiful drag queen out there instead of all the voluptuously, you know, beautiful drag queens that, you know, are out there right now. So it's, I'm just like, I'm sure that, and I'm sitting there like, you know, there was a kernel of truth to that. It's like they want, like, these Republican fucks, you know, want to try to be beautiful drag queens, but they know they can't, you know, at least not, like, you know, naturally, so they have to, like, limit the market by, like, banning it publicly and shit. So the tiny little taboo clubs, once they actually go to those, you know, they're basically going to be the ones that are the most fabulous. Because everyone else has to, like, hide it. Is base for a Republican? Yeah, I know the clip you're talking about. I saw his live stream talking about it. So I know what you're talking about. I mean, I'm reluctant to say he's full-on based because he's still like an anti-union major pro-business dork. Like he's, you know, like he's done you know, when he was governor of California, he did a lot of union busting, different tactics and shit. He's not really the greatest guy. But for a Republican, though, you know, he is actually pretty based. I will grant that. Man's anti-fascist, that's good enough for me. Well, yeah. What in the fuck? What the fuck? Are you good? Oh, I see what he's... Oh, I see what it is. He's going after a fucking housefly. Oh, dude, they're coming back. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, shit, it is. Oh, fuck, that's a big one. What the fuck? Yo, that is a huge fly. Dude, why are they so big already? Holy fuck. That fucker just, like, did a little flyby, and it was fucking huge. Zukov is all like, where'd it go? Both his ears are like straight up. And it's, oh, well, not anymore. But both his ears are like, where the fuck is it? But now his ears are all folded down. Go get it, bro. Go find it. Dude, he saw that from the doorway over there. He just like bolted. Oh shit, there it is. Oh, fuck. Go back to Zukov. Get eaten by him. Zukov's batting his little head around like, what the fuck? Where'd it go? Oh shit, he almost found it. Silly ass little thing. I found Nazi atrocities. You want to go and see the effects of fascism in Austria? Well, sure. Though, I mean, arguably, it would have been fervently. I firmly believe those people did not they did to demonize the poison ideology fascism created. Well, sure. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to contest that. I mean, like, when I was making that point from a couple streams back, yeah, at least with my point with it, it's more or less just, it's an alternate history thing. I mean, you can never really truly know if, like, the world is going to be better. For me, I just, you know, personally think it would have been better off if that type of ideology was, you know, its head was cut, you know, from the very beginning. And I don't mean just, like, you know, cut, you know, just wait for a head to be replaced. I mean, like, cut and, like, literally cremate the shit out of it and dissolve it in acid. You know, like, that, you know, go, you know, all the way with it. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, we aren't going to necessarily know if that does lead to a better world, or if it does mean that it just takes some more time for it to come back. But at the same time, it's like it is back, you know, now, with the knowledge and history and the facts of, you know, from the past. So it's like, sure, I mean, I guess in a sense there is at least the history to be like, hey, you know, like, we've seen what has happened before and we don't want it again. But at the same time, it's just like, I'd rather just not be in that situation from the first time. It's just like, because it doesn't really take much of a genius, even if it hasn't happened, so to speak. You can extrapolate, that idea from ideas it inspires from. Because frankly, fascism is heavily inspired by a lot of various different authoritarian ideologies, from monarchism to the strict religious heirship of kind of a Catholic structure to an extent. There's a lot of authoritative structural hierarchy that's analogous to all sorts of other philosophies as influenced off of. So thus, if anything, there probably just wouldn't have been another idea to take its place. Would have been better? Probably not. But who knows? I can only really assume, or just speculate. Most believe Stalin would replace this as great dictator in the 1900s. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. Even Lenin was kind of don't have him be in power, but because Lenin was also suffering due to his health, he couldn't exactly, ensure that. And to some people within the committee, Trotsky was seen as a little too militant, in a sense, and not as diplomatic, so, there wasn't, such a strong support for him. And, well, there was, but, and it was more of a recognition of, he could be, the second in command, basically. But, basically, entirely, Stalin, with especially his exceptional narcissistic paranoia and sociopathy, and a cunning manipulability, he essentially, fundamentally, was able to take advantage of all these different factors. The fact that some people weren't as, supportive of Trotsky, the fact that Lenin was in poor health, and the fact that he did have at least, some form of support already around him, it was pretty easy for him to just really co-opt a cult of personality. And all alternatives seem to at least similar outcomes. Well, maybe because they ain't thinking outside the box. I don't necessarily think that, if shit happened differently at any point during 1900s, would lead to, similar outcomes. If you're at least talking about, the 1900s to the 50s, or at least the 40s, and if, shit happened differently, I don't know. I would argue that there would definitely be, major differences, that the outcomes would not be the same. For example, the Kaiserreich, right? The whole Kaiserreich alternate history. If World War I played out that way, arguably, I think the outcomes of what ended up being quote-unquote the Second World War / leftism and, far-right ideology, I think, broadly, the outcomes of all that is actually, in a way, better, if you think about it. Honestly, it just still happens just differently. I know. Well, I'm very well aware of that. That's why I said World War II in quotes, because it's not the same as our World War II. And if anything, it's due to the Kaiser, which is a weakened economy, versus two massively growing syndicalist, leftist, industrial superpowers, basically. Yeah, Western style. Well, it's not quote-unquote leftist style communism. It's frankly true Marxism. A lot of the philosophy that Marx talked about, or at least a lot of what he was an advocate and and was talking about, it kind of a lot of his steps towards having a post-capitalist type of society is already needing to have a system in place of industrialization, which Marx, living in Germany at the time, and not just in Germany, but throughout Europe during the time, Western Europe was very industrialized. While Russia and out in the East was very agricultural. There was very little industrialization. There was some here and there, but not a lot. Most of that empire was very agricultural based, and pretty much almost strictly. I think it was between like 3/4 to like 80% of like the industries of like Russia was basically just agriculture in one way, shape, or form. It's just like there isn't as much of like a strong sense of being able to seize the means in the way, at least in the way that Marx was talking about it. It's not like it couldn't happen, but it needed other things to fall into place before it could, which basically kind of meant that Russia had to massively and rapidly industrialize, which under Lenin and Stalin, like Lenin, I would argue, probably did it far more at least like pragmatically, but Stalin did it in a way to where it led to the deaths of a lot of fucking people. Because he was like in a way kind of an accelerationist with it and did it very horribly. Well, in the West, that was already there. The things that needed to be put in place were already there in place. So it's just about the workers seizing the means basically at that point, and democratization of the industries and the factories and basically the whole overall economic system. It was, and if anything, it would have been easier, in a sense, to make a push towards, like a Marxist type of philosophy through the West. But because of Bolshevism had at least prominence and success in the East during like the 1917, 1819 and shit like that during that time, I mean, it ended up making a lot of the syndicalist type of theories more to the wayside. Mainly just because a lot of the revolutionary actions and shit that came into place, that Marx also talked about as well, came in a lot sooner out in Eastern Russia. Though it's not like it didn't happen in the West, though. There's like the Socialist Republic of Bavaria during 1917. There's also like different little like socialist republic city-states that propped up for a short period of time, where like there was like autonomous worker city-states basically that co-opted the government in some cities as like mutinies between the soldiers and different workers at the time, just at the very near end of the war and just after World War I. So it's like, if anything, like a lot of syndicalism was very strong back then. It was just that it kind of fell to the wayside just because Bolshevism was more prominent because it had more success. I get laughed at when I try to bring up syndicalism to devout communists. Well, they're devout. If they're devout, then they will understand that syndicalism is another like element of communism. They laugh at any other communist theory to MLs, any other communist school of thought is reformist and must die, that's so retarded. Which Marxist-Leninism is, funny enough, reformation of just Marxism. So, like, what the fuck are they even talking about? Like, I'm more of an OG Marxist than those motherfuckers. Like, what? So, like, huh? Like, that doesn't even make sense. And even then, I don't even necessarily think that, like, some different idea of communism or, like, Marxism or some shit is just, like, inherently wrong. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with some elements of Bolshevism, but it's not, like, my main philosophy. There's still parts about it that I don't agree with. And if anything, like I was talking about from earlier, it's just kind of, like, more of an accelerated offshoot of a lot of, like, syndicalism, basically. Because it needed to basically rapidly accelerate to the point where there was mass industrialization in Russia, and that led to a lot of different other negative consequences and outcomes that just were bad. Just not necessarily outright across the board, but for a good chunk of that board. Like, there's the whole thing about Holodomor, fucking the Great Purge. I mean, there's all sorts of different stuff. Though a lot of that was just, as well, ideological and power grabbing and power stabilization under Stalin's part, but nonetheless, I mean, a part of that is, rapidly industrializing and showing that you have results. Leading eventually to global communism. Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, isn't that kind of like if the whole idea of, like, democratization of the workplace and the worker seizing the means, isn't that, like, doesn't that kind of by proxy imply that, you allow yourself to open up to ideas that other workers may have, for the maximization of, like production for the workers and for the, common society abroad, you'd think. It's just like, hey, we officially started off with this system, but, some workers, in the factory are like, hey, I see a way to where we can better make this system more efficient, to where we can make our jobs a little bit easier and also make it a little more efficient and get more, out of the factory or out of the mill or whatever the fuck, right? So it's just like, I'd argue that, like, it, at least, and this is honestly kind of why if you talk to, like, 10 or 100 different leftists, you're going to hear at least, like, 100 different ideas of thought on one way or another. It's like 50% of the stuff that you'll hear them talk about will be relatively the same, but, like, the other half of it is, like, some, their own version of, like, how it should go about it. But if you, like, listen to, like, conservatives or right-wingers, like, if you listen to 100 of them, they just have, like, 100 different ways of saying, like Christian, religious, like, fiscal, conservative, pull yourself by the bootstrap values. It's just like, yippee. So much to explore and so much to potentially adapt and change as an idea with that. So much. At least I'd argue that, with more progressive / leftier ideas, there's kind of like a implicit merits of, like, of potentially evolving the philosophy and idea, because society and culture and humanity is an ever-changing thing. You applauded when you said news, Tennessee banned gender-affirming care. Are you surprised? Are you really honestly that surprised? Here, let me get a bowl loaded. I haven't even loaded one fucking bowl in this 20 minutes of just chit-chatting here. Oh my god! The only, like, mind-altering substance in my head right now is caffeine? It's actually not true. I smoked a fat toke before I went to go walk my dog and grab coffee, so, I mean, I'm not totally sober. I already did, like, a baby wake and bake before I started this, but now I'm doing my actual wake and bake. I need something to cool my stomach down a little bit, because it was feeling a little upset. Not super upset, but it was like, something don't feel right. Took a fat toke, and I'm like, alright, whatever that was, went away. You also clap for Alabama cracked down on illegal cannabis. They had a drug bust of 100 pounds yesterday in Huntsville. That's just sad. I feel more bad for that weed. Because that weed could have been smoked. It could have been smoked. It could have been made into a can of butter. It could have been made into amazing things. That could have been in my lungs. Well, it probably wouldn't have been in my lungs. I got plenty of, like, weed grown on farms in Oregon. But, like, I mean, it could have been in somebody's lungs, damn it. But now the fucking pigs got it. And now the pigs are gonna smoke it. They don't deserve it. Watch, one of them's, like, like, they're gonna say that, like, it's laced with fentanyl or some shit, too. And, like, one of the cops is gonna, like, quote, OD. Oh, there's marijuana, it's fentanyl. I smelt the marijuana and thus I'm overdosed on fentanyl, because that's how it works. Whoop, I literally just barely touched fentanyl with my finger. I'm about to overdose and die because I am a police officer. Pocket fent. Instead of pocket sand, it's just pocket fentanyl. Pocket fentanyl! The biggest weakness against cops, fent. I also found a couple dozen pounds of meth, and that's so common. That was a blip in the news. It's so common. It's like, so Jim Bob Jr. fucking, got caught with his dozen-pound of meth again. So, that's, typical news. And so in other news, those damn illegals are sending 100 pounds of marijuana reefer. That evil, devilish shit into our great God-fearing country. Well, yeah, but that, white hillbilly crackerjack meth and shit that was caught, who gives a fuck about that? That's part of a daily, nutritional breakfast here in Alabama. probably is, honestly. It probably is to some people. I guarantee you there are like a bunch of like redneck hick-ass Alabamian motherfuckers that literally make meth a part of their balanced breakfast. Oh man. There's at least like a few dozen. At least. Probably maximum about 100. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're the only ones that smoke meth, but those are the ones that strictly do it as a part of like their breakfast or some shit. It's like, alright, got myself a bowl of cereal, got a couple, I got, a couple strips of bacon, got a nice little sunny sop, and I got my pipe of meth. Can't afford a coffee, so I just brew meth. They then play up the River Madness shit and just said, we remind folks in Alabama medical cannabis will be arriving soon and people need to be patient. Wow, so Alabama is actually, see, okay, you want to know how, like, no one really gives that much of a shit about marijuana unless it's, like, 100 fucking pounds like that? So if you're, like, carrying, like, a gram or something on you, like, this is how you know people don't give a fuck, dude. If, like, even the media is basically being like, look, guys, we get it, medical marijuana's on the way, just chill the fuck out, like... Just calm down. Like, just smoke your illegal joints, chill, it'll be here, just don't be dumb. Like, the media is basically saying, we get it, y'all smoke weed, just don't be stupid to be caught with 100 pounds worth of it, be patient. You know, that's what they're saying, that's what the media is telling you. It's like, they don't give a shit. Just don't be dumb and caught with, like, a bunch of it. Like, that's all they're saying. Like, if you happen to buy it and, smoke it up and shit, they ain't gonna care at this point. I mean, unless they, again, catch it crossing their state at the border, but if it happens to already be in somebody's, like, pocket after they bought it, chances are they're not going to give a fuck anymore. It's like states like Idaho and shit that are still giving a fuck. I mean, because Alabama already has, like, a little bit of medical now, but, sounds like, it's something that will be loosened up in the future. So just wait for that. Just wait for that shit to be loosened. So like an opioid crisis fearmonger thing. There's a benzo crisis because people are taking too many antidepressants and shit. That's all what benzos are, alright? They're antidepressants, aren't they? Because wasn't that what like fucking Jordan Peterson was addicted to because he was addicted to prescription or antidepressant meds? We need those pills to function. Yeah. Dude, the same shit happened when Xanax is a benzo. Yeah. Well, I know this much, like, this same shit happened with the fucking opioid crisis, back when, like, Obama was around as president, dude. Because my mom was going for fucking uterine cancer and shit. Had a lot of fucking pain. And luckily, she isn't really affected by this stuff anymore. Because she is weaned off pretty significantly off of oxys now at this point, to where she's nowhere near as dependent like she used to, thank fuck. But, like, back when she had to, though, like, there was times because the doctors out of fear, just wouldn't prescribe her as much as she needed to. Like, they would, like, prescribe her only maybe, like, 3/4 of what she needed or something like that to try to, like, cut back or whatever the fuck. And, like, those, like, the week or like the few days and shit where she would just straight up not have anything to like help deal with her pains and shit, and then later down the line end up having withdrawals on top of that because she ended up having a dependency on that type of shit, was fucking scary, dude. It's scary shit. And that type of shit, like, is liable to kill people. More so than people getting knocked up on drugs and shit. And it's not like that ain't a killer either. I mean, it is, but a lot of times, there are people who are legitimately somewhat dependent on these things, whether due to addiction or due to medical reasons, and cutting them back, especially very significantly to the point where they don't have access to this stuff anymore, leads to very dangerous fucking results, to the point where it could kill them, or leave some very significant major health consequences that are long-term or permanent. Had back surgery at the height of the opioid fearmongering, and they only gave him 1/4 of what he needed to manage the pain. He spent 3 weeks in pain while working recovery from surgery without pills. Fuck, dude. See, that's just fucking ridiculous. I mean, all because of a fucking drug war and shit. All because of all this shit. It's just, this is why, you know, I'm at the minimal about decriminalization of drugs and about legalizing all of them. And regulating the fuck out of it and taxing that shit. Like, I mean, like, there, you know, that doesn't mean just like, oh, you know, just let it be like libertarian willy-nilly, like every drug could be treated like a marijuana dispensary. Absolutely not. But like, there needs to be like a far better fucking way to deal with this shit, because we're just so backwards in this fucking country, dude. Actually, I was looking up on the news before I came on here a little bit, before I was walking my dog. Dude, there was a shooting in Germany, in Hamburg. There's like a dude who shot up a German Jehovah's Witnesses like church or some shit, and like apparently it's like essentially like the shooter's dead, like apparently likely from a suicide shot. And basically, I noticed some key differences, by the way, just before I get to my main point. One, the cops showed up literally within minutes of someone calling the police on, you know, once shots were fired. And two, it was literally like, it's like, I mean, the only shooting in Germany for like a long fucking time. And pretty much like the only one that I can remember. And to my point though with that, is that like, there are so many American ass backwards motherfuckers that are like, gun control works, huh? So Germany got a shooting now, huh? How's that gun control work for you? I'm like, evidently it's working very fucking well. Because, and also they have a far better system of addressing shit like this than America. Because in America, if there's like a school shooting, cops just sit on their ass fucking texting on their phones and taking shits in the fucking school bathrooms and all that. But, you know, if a fucking shooting happens in Germany, they respond like that and they fucking rush into that fucking building, you know, clearing that shit out, trying to find, you know, survivors and other people, getting them out of there immediately and finding out where the shooter is and shit. Like, they responded like fucking quick. And very efficiently, too. It worked a lot better of a de-escalatory team in a situation like that than fucking any cop in America ever would. And these stupid American fucks want to be like, oh, that gun control ain't working no more, huh? It's like, yeah, it is. Like, just because you have, you know, one instance of something slipping through the cracks in Germany, you know, doesn't mean that that shit ain't working. Which also proves that there's other countries like Germany that absolutely have firearms, but it just shows and proves that they have a far better way of addressing, you know, and means for, you know, people like me who you know, would like to have, you know, like a firearm for fun or competition shooting, stuff like that. You know, being able to have access to that stuff still, while making sure that, you know, some crazy ass motherfucker doesn't. And, you know, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean you might have somebody slipping through the cracks like what happened, you know, in Germany, earlier today, but it just proves that having, you know, like it's like a reasonable nuance, regulation of accessibility to firearms, you know, minimalizes the fuck and mitigates the fuck out of these type of situations in these cases. Because again, when's the last time Germany had a mass shooting? Evidently earlier today, but when's the last time since then? I can't fucking remember. I really can't. Probably like over 10 years ago, if I had to take a guess. Well, in America, it's literally every fucking day. At least once a week or more in America. And it's so often that, like, basically most of them don't even get news coverage anymore. It's only when they get, like, 6+ people dead is when they actually start covering that shit again. Like, it happens so often here, we just barely cover it anymore. Guaranteed it was probably a shooting in America as well, but no one gives a fuck about that. Didn't get enough people dead. Because if it bleeds, it leads in America. Long story short, okay, I know I know you're going on your weird ass thing, so what is this? I read that. Because you only give a week's supply each month. Yeah, and that's bullshit. Mom doesn't understand that you can't ban substances out of existence. Only a few times she has a boomer take. I mean, I think it's just because, like, you know, they grew up in it. They grew up in, like, that just say no, like, Nancy Reagan anti-drug shit era. You know what I mean? They heavily grew up in that. And the whole drug war was basically at its height at the time. And especially even with the violence, if you think about it. Like, you had, like, you know, cartels like Pablo Escobar, you know, like, and shit. You know, like, I mean, where they had, like, you know, fucking, like, street shootings, like, a massive, heavily organized type of thing. I mean, it still is, but, like, I mean, it was a huge fucking thing where the DEA and the CIA and the American government was very heavily fucking involved. I mean, again, they still are, but, I mean, maybe not as much to the same extent as they were back in the 80s and 90s when it was a big culture war point. Because I'd argue that the whole drug war isn't as big outside of fentanyl, isn't as big of a point right now. You know, I guess when it comes to, like, the culture war issues. But, you know, if anything, like, that type of whole drug war thing is not really going to cartels as much anymore. It's going to China. Because there's this whole narrative that China is funneling and purposely, like, smuggling fentanyl into America and shit like that. Which is probably partially true. Partially. But, you know, I'd argue that it's also the big pharmaceutical companies. I guarantee the cartels are also doing it. Like, I mean, fuck, there's a neo-Nazi who was caught smuggling fucking fentanyl from the Mexican border to the U.S., and when he was going to go to court, the day he was supposed to go to trial, he killed himself. And it was actually one of the big neo-Nazis that was a part of the Charlottesville riots and shit. With, like, the Read Not Shot, like, the They Won't Replace Us fucking marches and shit. I forgot his name, but, like, even neo-Nazis are smuggling fentanyl into our fucking country. So, you know, while they're the ones who want to fucking fearmonger about China doing it. That's why I say it's only partly true. Because, frankly, a lot of it's probably just a fucking narrative, you know, propped up by those motherfuckers. And the GOP. If it's true, it's poetic, because the West smuggled opium into China in the 1800s. History doesn't repeat itself a bit, but it does rhyme. I mean, I argue that's kind of history repeating itself, in a sense. Different players. Different players of the same game. But, you want to know why I think it is a little bit of a narrative? Because you want to know where the first, like, actual, like, federal immigration policies were? They were actually against the Chinese. Specifically, initially, at first, towards Chinese women, Chinese men specifically, at first. Mainly because they thought that they were stealing white women to basically go into opium dens in, you know, along the West Coast and shit. To basically, you know, like, you know, have their way with them and all that shit. And basically, another narrative was that they were smuggling opium into the country and all that shit. Which led to the first immigration policies that would restrict at least, you know, like, essentially, at least before then, America's pretty much outright open border policy. Or so they said. Yep. Yeah, you know the story. And then, like, a couple years later, they decided to just make it equalized. And just, you know, said Chinese people across the board. I almost said China people. That was about to like, I was like that just unintentionally, but oops. But, and yeah, it was the same thing with Mexicans too, later down the line with marijuana. I mean, that's why I say it's a narrative. And honestly, we're seeing the same narrative of fentanyl against China now. And like I said, it's not like, you know, there isn't probably a kernel of truth to that. But I'd argue that's because of a lot of the business deals that major corporations like the pharmaceutical industry have with, you know, countries like China. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's not just China doing some, you know, uniquely Machiavellian thing. It's like, I mean, they probably are to an extent. They probably are taking advantage of stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, they're not, like, the core player of that. If anything, America's doing it to itself with this whole drug war shit it's been doing on its own people and its neighbors and the rest of the world for fucking at least a century at this point. I mean, if you really think about it, it's been at least about, honestly, over a century. Because, like I said, those first, like, immigrational policies to restrict Chinese people from going into the country, you know, part of that was due to drugs. at least in some part, to push that narrative. I mean, and like, like these opium dens and like all these other substances, like it seems like people were able to take these drugs and be able to do these things, and in fact they were sold as like elixirs by snake oil salesmen half the fucking time back in the day. Like, here, have my like cocaine medical elixir, which eventually became Coca-Cola. Like it was shit like that. Like, I mean, there was times where like even like what we see as sodas today were basically like little medical elixirs that would have like straight up like drugs like Coke, or for like Pepsi's case Peptin, and shit like that. Like, I mean, so like evidently, like for a long time in human history, drugs were not a problem. And it's not like people didn't have problems with those substances, but like society seemed to have at least a little bit of a better way of dealing with these things back then. Maybe they didn't have the technology or the proper resources, so to speak, but they just seem to at least have a better understanding of like, yeah, it's not like there might be like a element of societal ill to it, but there is like at least an element of like, yeah, this isn't somebody that's just slumped over, deprived or possessed or whatever the fuck. They just need help. It's like there was at least some element of that like put in people's minds when they saw shit like that. Wish they put cocaine back in Coca-Cola. Grandma remembered it instead of put a pepper in her step. I bet it did. She said, as a kid, it was sad they changed the formula. Damn. A kid getting some Coke. What the fuck? I mean, honestly, like, that's also part of the reason why I wouldn't mind, or I would advocate, for legalization of drugs, especially with regulations. Because, like, imagine if, like, these soda companies could go to, like, the actual OG recipes again, right? And be able to, like, release, like, the OG, and then, like, so they can have, like, like, where you have, like, your regular old Coca-Colas, the ones that are made in Mexico in a glass bottle. Like, you still have the ones that are still existing. You just get, like, either, just, like, get an OG, like, recipe, and just put it in a bottle. Just put it in, like, one of the glass bottles, like the ones that are made in Mexico and stuff. Because, honestly, I would try it. I wouldn't drink it regularly, but I would definitely try it every now and then. She died in 2004, and I'm glad she did. Venom was an OG feminist, like she marched for women's rights as a teen. Well, that seems... that's a roller coaster of a comment. She died in 2004. I'm glad she did, but she was an OG feminist and marched for women's rights and was awesome and based. It's like, what? She would have hated your stepdad. She probably would have been like an old ass, like babushka style lady, got her own pen, just like, you bastard! Quit being a sexist pig! I can see it now, dude. Oh my god, yes. I would have loved her. There's something about, like, the old people that, like, were just, like, rebellious and kind of revolutionary in nature that were just kind of, like, yeah, just awesome. She was racist, don't get me wrong. Well, okay, well. Yeah, and that's... You gotta take the W's when you can. She sent mom to school in the Klan uniform, scared black kid bullying mama's kid. Oh my god. Okay, never mind. Alright, well, Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh mama mia, papa pia, baby's got diarrhea. Oh, wow. Okay. Oof. Yeah, okay, I just retract literally everything I just said. I mean, the women's rights thing, cool. Just the right women's rights? Yeah. What the fuck? Jesus Christ. Oof. Oof. I chalked it up to how they were raised. I mean, sure, but still. I mean, if that was the case, then it's just like, then they would raise their kids potentially to be somewhat similar, and then so on and so forth. Just remember as a warrior for women, not as racist. Well, yeah, I mean, I grant that. I mean, honestly, it's just kind of better, I would say. I mean, you know, in a sense, because, like, yeah, she sounded like she was kind of, yeah, like, definitely a racist fuck, for sure. Like, you know, but, you know, all in all, like, mostly because didn't see that part of her. Well, yeah, it seems like all in all, it just, I don't know, like, you know, if it was due to some personal experience, or if it was literally just because her parents were just like, yeah, they're damn bad, it just basically never been around many black folk, you know, in her life. So, I don't know, like, there's a lot of variables and reasons as to why someone could be that racistly stupid. I mean, if she was fighting for women's rights, chances, especially back in that day, chances are she honestly, like, I also don't know, I'll have to ask Mom about that. If I have to take a guess, I'm assuming because of women's rights and women's suffrage at the time, there was a minor element, especially in the South, of women's rights and feminism being interwoven with a lot of white supremacy. And a lot of, like, you know, like Confederate racist type of elements, for sure. Like, where it kind of partly co-opted some of the feminist movement at the time. I mean, and it's not like they didn't, like, subvert feminism, like, they were still pushing that, but they just wanted for, like, white women directly, and only that. You know, while, you know, most, in broadly with women's suffrage, it was just with women across the board, and if anything, was more heavily tied towards labor because of a lot of immigrant women and a lot of different women who came from overseas, or you know, women domestically who were born and raised here, working in, like, cotton mills and shit like that. So a lot of women's suffrage, the women's suffrage movement was predominantly around, like, labor and women's autonomy, but at least especially in the South, there was a strong element of a racist subversion into it, where it's just like white women, you know, need to, you know, be strong and, like, you know, be able to be independent, especially when out in public, because you don't want those black folk, you know, taking advantage of you and this and that and all that shit. It was interwoven with a lot of those ideas. So, like, if I had to take a guess, when she was organizing with different feminists at the time, chances are there were probably also white supremacist ones, and interwove a lot of those ideas into women's rights into her. And thus, she just kind of believed it. If I had to take a guess. Doesn't make it right, but just taking a hunch. She did marry a Mexican, so it must have been white enough for her. Well, that's why I'm thinking it was probably mostly around, like, black folk, probably. You know, because that's where a lot of that suffragette movement, at least in the South, was predominantly around, because not that long ago, like, literally a generation before that, they were slaves. So, you know, it's like, there's this strong fear, or at least fear-mongering and scaremongering about, oh, now that they're free, you know, they're gonna want vengeance and try to take advantage of white women and whatever the fuck else. Whatever other racist nonsense and shit. So it's just like, I mean, when it came to, like, Hispanics or other races, it probably wasn't nowhere near as strong. Probably still there, but not as much, because it wasn't, like, the big, you know, like, racist push at that time. But, again, I'm just taking a random educated guess just based on what I know from that time of history. At least, you know, broadly. Your dad's mom, Granny as you call her, is progressive as fuck, but kind of bad mom because she abandoned her kids a couple years to explore Europe. And she didn't take her kids with her? That kind of sucks. I mean, I would have, like, at the very least, you know, been like, hey, I'm gonna take my kids with me. Because if you're traveling in Europe, I mean, at least when it comes to children, as far as I understand, I mean, there can be an exception, you know, from them having, like, a passport or not, I think depending on their age. I'm not too sure. I don't know how that all works, but if you have, like, a little kid with you, you know, like your child that's, like, 8 years old, I mean, there isn't, like, I at least I'd argue it's like, as long as they are obviously being accompanied by their parent, you know, or at least a legal guardian who does have a passport, you know, then I don't really see too much of an issue with it. But I would imagine, I would argue there probably should at least be some sort of, like, you know, some sort of identification, you know, to at least make sure that, you know, there's, you know, like, child is identifiable while overseas or something, you know, so that should at least be addressed before kid goes. But I don't know, I could see, like, a age limit thing for that. Just she owned her hair from Louisiana, not racist at all, because she put their mom black than whites around her growing up. There were more blacks than whites, and she saw black culture as normal and white culture as weird as she grew up. I mean, you know what? She's not even wrong. I'm just, you know, hot take, white culture is kind of weird. Dude, you know how many times we just look at some weird-ass shit on, like, Public Freakout or, like, on YouTube or something, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this white people shit? Like, this is, like, some of the whitest people shit I've seen. You know, it's like, how many times does that happen? It happens somewhat frequently. And I'll even look at, like, it's shit that it seems like white people shit, but other people are doing it. I'm like, and I'm sitting here like, what? What? And I get confused. Because it's just like, man, what have we done to people? It's like, what have we done? Jesus. It's like, what have we done to the world? It's like, fucking God, man. She was also big into jazz music. Dude, I love jazz. So, like, a lot of music that I'm in, you know, like, that I'm especially heavily into, like, metal, rock, all that type of shit, like, is directly influenced from genres like jazz, including the music that you're into. So, without jazz, we would not have a lot of the different genres of music we have today. Haven't heard from her since Dad died. I think losing her precious baby boy messed her up bad. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that sucks. And he died in 19. Oh, so you haven't really heard from her in a couple of years. Well, I don't know if you have any contact her or anything, but just try to hit her up and see if she's still around. I mean, if anything, she probably would, you know, probably feel good after hearing from at least her grandkid from after a few years. If, obviously, she's still kicking it. If you haven't heard from her so long, I mean, I may have also called her daughter, my aunt, a daughter of a whore in front of her. Man, man, you got away with, like, you know, you got away with words, don't you? Oh my lord. My God. I don't know, I think after all these years, I mean, I think, you know, I don't know, I'd say that, you know, try to hit her up, see how she's doing. Honestly, I mean, you know, despite that, whatever, you know, like, I mean, it's been a few years, I mean, is she really one that would hold a grudge for that long, you know, especially for something like that? Former drill sergeant and never left that mindset behind. Yeah. Well, honestly, from what you've told me about your aunt, she does sound pretty cool. A hard ass, but pretty cool. And honestly, like, I've worked with a lot of hard asses. I've been around with a lot of hard asses before that are also pretty cool. You know, you just kind of have to, like, kind of learn how to work around it a little bit, you know what I mean? And once you kind of, like, figure that out, and kind of learn how to, you know, deal with the hard assery about them and shit, like, you know, they end up being really cool people to just chill with and, you know, fuck with and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, like, I mean, there's, like, one dude from work, that, you know, I've, you know, like, been friends with and shit, where we'd go, like, hang out, you know, like, after work and stuff. Been to a Bandit Paper Mill a couple times before, so, you know, but he can kind of be temperamental and be hard-ass about things sometimes, you know, and after a while, I just kind of figured out how to, like, you know, work around it and stuff, you know, and you know, once I kind of figured out, you know, that type of stuff, him and I, you know, end up in, you know, getting real close, and pretty much, like, I was, like, basically one of the few people that he generally, like, respected and liked, because I actually kind of, like, understood him and, you know, was a good listener about, you know, different things, you know, and shit, so, I mean, you know, because, like, I was somebody, I guess, you know, generally, I'm, you know, patient enough to kind of, like, deal with someone who could potentially be a hard ass, but also be like, all right, you know, I could see, like, a chill, cool person, you know, that I, you know, can see and shit, so let me just, you know, be patient with the person, be chill, you know, well, you know, it'll work itself out, you know. For being a snarky riffer for years. Well, that's the, well, I mean, if that's the aunt, though, but I don't know. I mean, it's just you, though. I mean, if it's, like, only you and just you doing it, I mean, is she really gonna give that much of a shit? You have enough to do with your mom being snarky. That's your mom, not you. So, I don't know. Sounds like, and, I mean, also, like, if you came out with it being like, yeah, I mean, I was kind of a dick about that, you know, calling your aunt a son of a whore, you know, I didn't mean to do that. You know, and, you know, after, like, kind of hitting her up after a few years, I don't know, I mean, that will kind of, like, bring a better, you know, look at least just for yourself. Being like, alright, yeah, you hit me up after all that time, and, you know, kind of felt bad about that one thing, and, you know, want to see how I was doing. Right on, you know. Kind of gives, like, a sense of, like, alright, that's nice. It's just, like, a little thing like that. It's not like you have to, like, consistently hit her up or some shit, but just, like, one little call like that or something, you know, or just, like, one little, you know, or a little text or some shit, you know, like, hey, I mean, at the worst, like, she's gonna be like, why you hit me up, you know, but if not, it's probably gonna be that, you know, be like, oh, that was nice, hit me up, neat. I mean, speaking of which, I need to do that for my brother, because honestly, I found out he fucking got T-boned when, like, we had all that crazy heavy snow and shit. Like, I think it was, like, going home to work or from work, and fucking, like, straight up got T-boned and shit, and kind of got, like, a mount cushion. His leg got somewhat fucked up, not, like, broken or, like, eviscerated or anything, but, like, kind of swole up and got really majorly bruised. And it was, like, T-bone on the driver's side. I'm just like, Jesus. It's like, fuck, dude. And I just found out about that yesterday. I'm like, what the fuck? So, haven't talked to him in a while, so I figured I'd at least call him up and be like, yeah, you good? It's just like, I haven't heard from him, man, and just found out about that. Damn. Oof. You made loaded hash browns with cheese, onions, and green peppers. Oh my god, that sounds awesome. That sounds delicious. I mean, for me, I'd probably replace green peppers with jalapenos, because I love jalapenos way more than green bell peppers. I'm not a really big fan of bell peppers, but I really love jalapenos though, so get some load of hash browns, like, you know, a light sprinkling, a little cheddar on there, salt, pepper, some onions, maybe like a little sprinkling, some garlic powder, just a little sprinkling, you know, just for a little extra aroma. And then get some jalapenos in there for a little spice. Oh my god, now that sounds fucking amazing right there. That sounds like a nice, hefty load of hash browns. Mmm. The onions is something your stepdad turned you on to? Oh, dude, caramelized onions are fucking god tier shit, dude. Dude, your stepdad, okay, you know, he's a shitbag in so many ways, but he just turned you on to something good. He just, like, cause, dude, caramelized onions in, like, fucking anything. Like, I'm not even kidding, dude. Like, once you caramelize those onions and get them a nice golden brown in the pan, and literally put that on anything practically. Like, put that on a burger, put that in eggs, put that in hash brown, put that in fucking, like, anything, dude. Oh my god, caramelized onions are fucking... Dude, like, a raw onion is, like, you hate onion. See, I think it's because of raw onion. Like, if you have just a regular raw onion, that's way different once you caramelize that shit and get that stuff sauteed. Like, you know, and nice and caramelized, that's different. You know, that you just change the onion entirely. It's a different flavor. It's a, you know, like, different texture, different thing. And it's just so, amazingly good. Dude, get, like, saute some onions and put that on, like, a really good, you know, bratwurst, and, like, put that on a hot dog. Oh my god, dude. Trust me, you'll love me. You'll love me for that. And also, get, like, I know you hate mustards, and I know you are about, like, dry stuff, but, dude, you gotta trust me on honey mustard, man. It's, like, it's sweet, it's not sour or pungent. Like, you gotta get some honey mustard specifically, dude. And, like, get a nice little soft drizzle on that, on top of the caramelized onions with that. Dude, Your anxiety nearly killed me doing this. And, dude, that, and whatever, and what you just described to me, though, sounds fire. Just keep making that, honestly. Just, like, keep practicing doing that. Because, like, if you learn how to, like, start making hash browns in a pan like that, I mean, you'll start learning how to also do, by proxy, you'll start learning how to do other things, like sauteing, like, stir-fry, you know, or, like, you know, making some, like, you know, some fried rice and some shit like that. Like, you're kind of by proxy learning how to make other stuff. I mean, you're just... So, deadass, I strongly recommend, you know, like, exploring, you know, especially with sauteed onions. Like, start exploring with the onions. Because now, you know, that you tried that, with some sauteed onions in there, and some caramelized onions, oh my god. Explore with that. Make that like a base, like, you know, for a veg, and then get, like, another base. You know, like I said, like hash browns, eggs, rice, something like that. Dude, Wish I didn't drown this in black pepper, though. It clashes with the green pepper. Yeah, see, like, don't drown it in black pepper. Like, when I was saying earlier about, like, yeah, I'll put salt and pepper, but I don't do a lot of it. You know, because you already have a spice. You know what I mean? For you got the bell pepper, so for me, it'd be the jalapeno. So, I mean, you don't really need a lot of black pepper. If anything, let the black pepper kind of be like an extra aroma to the spice you already have. I mean, because that's kind of what it's meant. It's like salt and pepper are just like, it's a basic seasoning. It's like the basic of basic seasonings. I mean, you can pretty much put it in literally anything, even if it does have spice in it. You know, but if it already does, you want to use it more as like an aroma enhancer, not like the spice. If you don't got spice in there, then yeah, put some extra black pepper in there, you know, to kind of get it spicy. But, you know, if it already has spice, you don't need to do that. Honestly, it's basic but as fuck, but it's fire. Dude, basic food is fire as fuck sometimes. Dead ass. Like, honestly, you want to know that is something that's very hearty but basic as fuck? Fried rice of anything. Chicken fried rice, beef fried rice, pork fried rice, veggie fried rice, any type of fried rice. Like, literally any type. Just get some, you know, rice, get it all nice and soaked up, get a nice big pan going, or wok if you got that. Those are actually preferable. You know, I honestly want to get one for myself, honestly, because they're kind of fun to play around with, because I've actually made some with our China Chef kitchens at work before. It's a little tricky to kind of get the handle of, but the ones that work are big ones. I mean, if you got one at home, they're going to be, like, you know, more smaller sized. But, like, at work, they're, like, big ones, you know, for, like, a full-on kitchen and shit. So it's a lot more trickier to deal with that. But, I mean, you know, like, you know, just getting some, like, fried rice in there, get some basic veggies. Usually, like, celery, carrot, onion is usually a good base to go with. But, you know, you can put whatever vegetables you want in there, frankly. And then, you know, just a base of a meat, you know, like some type of a protein in there. And there you go. It's basic, but it's very hearty because you got, like, different veggies in there. You got protein and you got, like, you know, some carb base with the rice. So you kind of got, like, a little mixture of all sorts of things going on there. And it's basic as fuck, but it's very hearty and really delicious. Especially if you get, like, you know, sauce in there, like, you know, a little bit of, like, you know, some wasabi or some other shit in there, and, like, to kind of add a little spice or a little extra, you know, color and flavor to it. Ooh. Like, fried rice is so simple, but it is so delicious. Because you can literally do anything with it. You can even make it, like, a sweet dish out of it if you wanted to. Send a picture of it. Oh, I'm sure you'll be okay with me sharing this. I want, you know, we should see this. We should all bask in your glory. Your YouTube class should have missed the last 30 seconds. We should be able to go back. Oh my god, honestly, this looks pretty good, dude. It's basic as fuck. Got the browns in there. I'm seeing those caramelized onions. And the cheese in there and all that. That's actually pretty good looking. I mean, it already looks like you've chowed down on some of it. But, dude, that does look pretty good. I'm not even gonna lie, dude. Yeah, just kind of keep working at it. Yeah, just keep making that type of dish, you know, a little bit. And then start exploring rice. But if you missed the last 30 seconds, I was just basically saying, like, a really good, you know, base hearty meal outside of something like with hash browns is just rice. And it's so easy to work with because you can literally make anything with it. I mean, I was going on that little thing for a minute though, so I mean, you know, if there was anything you missed, you could just, you know, go back in a little bit. But anyway, you know, speaking of the walks at work and shit, it is around 3 o'clock here, so did my little hour. So I'll get one more little bowl load up here. And I think I'll do my little bits of a do. Oh, here. My stepdad made a your mom joke to me last night. I'm not sure how to take it. What was it? Just out of curiosity, what was it? Your mama joke, dude. This has to be the most... A sex joke about your mom? Oh, dude, yeah, what the fuck? Dude, what a degenerate, bro. If you ever, like, think you're a degenerate or something, just remind yourself of his existence, man, because God, we're talking about previous partners. Oh my god. Man, what is... Dude, what the fuck is up with him, man? Does he have not a shred of decency? Well, no, he doesn't. He's fucking a conservative neo-Confederate freak. What the fuck? He pretends to be super friendly to your face. He wants to be a pastor after all. I feel like he's just really prepping himself for it. Oh. Zukov is grunting and moaning over it. It's just like, ugh, wow, lame. I'm Moses of my family, and I am seeing my exodus before me. For the Pharaohs of Egypt sends me off to the land paradise. What a fucking goober, dude. Anyway, I'll call it good for now, at least. But of course, I'll be back around for the next one when I get off work. So, peace out until then, and toodaloo buckaroo.